Where in the world can I find true love? Everyone wants something from me. Money, status, connections, the pleasure of being seen with Marcus Washington, the billionaire.
Marcus Washington sat alone in his penthouse, high above the Dallas skyline. The city lights twinkled below him like fallen stars. But up here in his 35th floor apartment, there was only silence. The chandelier above him cast soft golden light across his dining table. Real crystal, real gold. Everything around him screamed wealth and success. But Marcus was alone. He poured himself a glass of wine, a 1995 Burgundy that cost more than most people's monthly rent. The liquid was the color of deep rubies. He swirled it in the glass, watching how the light caught the wine and danced across his face. Then he cut into his steak, Wagyu beef, flown in from Japan, cooked perfectly to medium rare by his personal chef, a meal that most people would never taste in their entire lifetime. He took a bite. It was perfect. Everything was perfect. Except nothing was. Marcus set down his fork and looked out the window at the city below. All those people, all those lives, and somewhere out there someone was supposed to love him, someone real, someone genuine. But where? Where in the world can I find true love? He said out loud, his voice echoing in the empty apartment. They have made it impossible. He laughed, a harsh, bitter laugh that sounded strange in the silence. Everyone wants something from me, he continued, still speaking to himself, to the empty room. Money, status, connections, the pleasure of being seen with Marcus Washington, the billionaire. He took another sip of wine. But does anyone actually see me? Does anyone actually care about me, just me? Not Marcus Washington, the CEO, not Marcus Washington, the businessman, just Marcus. He looked at his reflection in the window of his penthouse. A handsome man, successful, powerful, completely, utterly alone. You know what the real question is, he said, laughing again. Does true love even exist? Or is it just something people made up to make themselves feel better about being alone? He sat there in his luxury penthouse, with his expensive wine and his perfect steak, looking like he had everything, but feeling like he had nothing. And in that moment, Marcus made a decision that would change everything. He was done with dating women who wanted his money. He was done with people who saw his bank account instead of his heart. He was done with the emptiness of it all. He was going to find someone real, even if it meant becoming nobody to do it. Marcus Washington had built his empire from nothing. His father had been a janitor. His mother had worked 3 jobs as a housekeeper. They'd saved every penny, sacrificed every comfort, just so Marcus could have a chance at something better. He took that chance and ran with it. By age 35, Marcus owned the most successful restaurant chain in Texas. Forbes called him a visionary. CNN interviewed him about his revolutionary business model. Beautiful women wanted to date him. Men wanted to shake his hand. But here was the problem nobody talked about. Wealth was lonely. Marcus had dated models, actresses, influencers, women who wore designer everything and talked about things that felt hollow. Not one of them had asked him a genuine question about who he was inside. Not one of them had laughed at his jokes because they were actually funny. They laughed because he owned a restaurant and had money. Not one of them had looked at him with real interest in his eyes. They looked at his bank account reflected back at them. And Marcus was tired of it. So on a cold November evening in Dallas, after another failed date with a woman who spent 45 minutes talking about her shopping addiction, Marcus made a decision that would change everything. He would test the world. He would see what people really thought of him. He would pretend to be a cleaner. The next morning, Marcus walked into Washington's, his flagship restaurant in downtown Dallas. He was dressed differently, old jeans with holes, a gray custodian's uniform that hung loose on his broad shoulders, a name tag that read Michael instead of Marcus. He'd hired a temporary cleaning crew through an agency. He would be part of that crew. Nobody would know. His general manager, Derek, barely looked up from his desk when Michael arrived. "You're the new cleaner," Derek said, not bothering to make eye contact. Yes, Marcus said, keeping his voice different, not his usual confident tone. Quieter, smaller. Whatever, just clean the dining area before we open, and try not to mess anything up this time. The last cleaning company left dust on the chandelier. Marcus said nothing. He just picked up a mop and a bucket and started working. And that's when the real test began. By noon, Marcus had witnessed things that made him sick. His executive chef, Brandon, walked into the kitchen where Michael was mopping. "Yo, cleaner," Brandon called out. "You're getting water on the premium tile. That's imported from Italy, man. Try not to ruin it, okay?" Marcus kept mopping. He didn't respond. Brandon laughed, a mean laugh. "Why are you not talking? You don't speak English. Maybe you need to go back to whatever country you're from." Marcus felt his jaw tighten, but he stayed quiet. Later, his assistant restaurant manager, Tiffany, saw Michael wiping down the bar. "Not like that," she said, snatching the cloth from his hand. "You're going to leave streaks, just do the baseboards or something simple." Marcus watched as she rewiped the bar, doing exactly what he'd been doing. "And get that trash out of the back," Tiffany continued, pointing. "It's starting to smell. Can't have the owners noticing that kind of thing, you understand?" Marcus understood perfectly. He carried the trash out, and as he walked through the back, he heard his sous chef, Jerome, talking to another staff member. "Man, I hate how Derek acts like he's so important when he's just an assistant. And we've got this new cleaning guy who doesn't know what he's doing. This restaurant is falling apart without the boss here every day." Marcus kept walking. The insults didn't hurt. What hurt was realizing how much his staff talked about him behind his back. "The boss is such an arrogant jerk," Jerome continued. "Acts like he's better than everybody else because he's got money. You know what? Money doesn't make you a good person. That dude is probably lonely as hell." Marcus paused. That part was true. It was 5 p.m. when she walked in. Her name was Diamond Mitchell, and she was one of the newest servers at the restaurant. 28 years old, tall, with deep brown skin and eyes that seemed to see everything. She had a natural grace about her, the kind of beauty that didn't come from makeup or expensive clothes, but from something deeper inside. Marcus had never noticed her before. She must have been hired after he stopped coming to the restaurant regularly. Diamond came into the kitchen, where Marcus was mopping the floors again. "Hey," she said, her voice kind. Not condescending, not mean, just kind. "Can you mop around me? I need to grab something real quick." Marcus stepped back. "Sure." She worked quickly, and as she passed him, she said, "Thank you for moving. I know we make your job harder. I appreciate you being patient with us." Marcus looked up. She was already gone, but those words, "I appreciate you," hit him harder than anything that had happened all day. This woman, this beautiful woman with the kind smile, had shown him more respect in 30 seconds than his entire staff showed him all year. He watched her work that evening. She was attentive to the customers. She remembered orders without writing them down. She made jokes that actually made people laugh. She had this light about her, like she genuinely cared about people's experience. And unlike everyone else he'd ever met, she didn't care if he was there or not. She hadn't even looked at his face long enough to recognize him later. By the end of the night, Marcus had made another decision. He wasn't going to stop this experiment. But now it was about her. He needed to know if Diamond Mitchell was real, if she was the kind of woman who saw people for who they actually were and not what they owned. Because if she was, then maybe, just maybe, there was hope for him after all. The following week, Marcus came to the restaurant every single day. He mopped floors, he cleaned bathrooms, he emptied trash cans. He did all the things that his staff treated as invisible work. And he watched Diamond. She always said thank you to him. She always treated him with respect. Once, when he was carrying a heavy bucket, she asked if he needed help. Another time, when Brandon yelled at Michael for something that wasn't even his fault, Diamond pulled Marcus aside and said, "Don't let him get to you. He's got issues. That's not about you." She saw him. Not his money, not his status. She saw the person underneath. Marcus began to orchestrate moments. He'd position himself to help her. He'd clean near where she was working. Once, he spilled water near her station, and when she came to help clean it up, they both reached for the same cloth and their hands touched. Diamond laughed. "We're a good team," she said. Marcus's heart felt like it might explode out of his chest. That night, Derek called him into the office. "Look, Michael," Derek said, leaning back in his chair. "You're doing okay work, but we need someone full-time. Are you interested in a permanent position? I can put you on the regular payroll. Benefits, the whole thing." Marcus said yes immediately. Because now, he wasn't just pretending to be a cleaner. He was committed to figuring out if Diamond Mitchell was the one person in this world who could love him for exactly who he was. 2 weeks into his new life as Michael, Marcus was cleaning the dining area when the restaurant filled with a group of Dallas elite, wealthy business owners, their significant others, people with names that appeared in Dallas society magazines. His staff was nervous. This was an important group. Marcus stayed out of the way, mopping near the back wall. Then Derek saw him. "Michael," Derek called out, "come here." Marcus walked over. Derek was standing with one of the guests, a tall, dark man in an expensive suit. "This is Mr. Peterson," Derek said, making a show of introducing them. "He's thinking about investing in a new location. Michael, maybe you could. Get him some water." Marcus could see what Derek was doing. He was using Michael, the cleaner, to make the restaurant seem humble, to make the service staff seem attentive. It was a power play. "Of course," Marcus said. He went to get water. But as he returned with the glass, Brandon saw an opportunity. "You know what?" Brandon said loudly, loud enough for Mr. Peterson and everyone around to hear. "Michael is so stupid, he probably filled this water from the bathroom instead of the filtered system." Several people laughed. Marcus felt his face burn. He extended the water to Mr. Peterson. "Actually," Mr. Peterson said, taking the water and looking Brandon in the eye, "this water looks fine. And I'd like to point out that some of you are being incredibly rude to someone who's just doing their job. That says a lot about your character." Brandon's face went red. But then, and this was the moment that changed everything, Diamond stepped forward. She was standing nearby, and she'd heard everything. "He's right," Diamond said, looking directly at Brandon. "That was mean. Michael works hard and he deserves respect. Everybody deserves respect." She walked over to Marcus and smiled at him. A real smile, not a customer service smile. "Thank you for the water earlier," she said. "When I spilled that coffee yesterday, you helped me clean it up without me even asking. You're a good person." And then she walked away. Marcus stood there, holding an empty water pitcher, feeling like the world had shifted on its axis. She had defended him. She had called out cruelty on his behalf. She had seen that he was being humiliated, and she couldn't stand it. That was the moment Marcus realized something crucial. He was falling in love with Diamond Mitchell. Not because she was beautiful, not because she was talented, but because she had compassion. She had integrity. She saw people, really saw them, and she valued their humanity. She was everything he'd been searching for. But there was a problem. Diamond didn't know who he really was. She thought he was Michael, a cleaner who was trying to get by. She felt sorry for him. She was kind to him out of compassion and human decency. If she found out he was actually Marcus Washington, the owner of the restaurant, worth $3.2 billion, everything would change. She would think the whole thing was a lie, a game, a test. She would think he'd been playing with her, manipulating her, using his wealth and power to see if she would love him. And maybe she'd be right. Marcus sat in his apartment that night, staring out at the Dallas skyline, knowing he was in serious trouble. He had started this experiment to find out if someone could love him for being him. But he'd fallen in love with Diamond, while lying to her about exactly who he was. And now every single day he went to work, the lie got bigger, the deception got deeper. Diamond was starting to trust him, starting to open up. She'd mentioned that she was struggling with student loans, that she came from a poor background and had worked hard to become a server at a fine dining restaurant, hoping to eventually save enough to go back to school for hospitality management. She'd told him her dreams, her fears, her hopes for the future. And he'd listened, knowing exactly who he was, knowing he could solve all her financial problems with a phone call. But he didn't, because he needed to know if she would love him without his money. 3 weeks into his experiment, Marcus was starting to crack under the pressure. He was the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company, but his assistant was calling him asking why he wasn't showing up to meetings. His lawyers were confused. His business partners were frustrated. He couldn't keep this up forever. But he also couldn't stop. Not now, not when he was finally getting to know Diamond. They had started talking more, not just passing conversations, real conversations. One evening, after the restaurant closed, Diamond was in the kitchen counting her tips. Marcus was mopping nearby, always nearby these days. "Can I ask you something?" Diamond said. Marcus's heart jumped. He thought this was it, the moment she realized who he was. "Sure," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Why do you work here? Like, really? You seem like, I don't know, you seem like you could be doing something else." Marcus leaned on his mop. This was a good question, an honest question. "I'm trying to figure out who I am," he said, which was the truth. Without all the noise, without all the expectations. I wanted to know what it felt like to just be nobody, to see if people would still value me if I didn't have anything. Diamond looked at him for a long moment. "That's deep," she said, "and kind of sad, but I think I understand. I grew up with nothing, Michael, and I learned that the most important thing is how you treat people. Money doesn't change that, character does." She smiled at him, and in that moment, Marcus realized how much he was going to hurt her when the truth came out. The next week, the restaurant did a photo shoot for a Dallas luxury magazine. The owner, Marcus, was supposed to be in the photos. Derek was panicking because Mr. Washington hadn't shown up for the shoot. "I don't understand," Derek kept saying. "He's usually very involved in the restaurant's marketing. He's always here." Marcus was hiding in the back, pretending not to hear. The photographer was angry. The magazine had blocked off time and resources. They couldn't do the shoot without the owner. Then Derek had an idea. "You know what? Let's do it with just the staff. Show the experience, show the people who make it great. Maybe that's even better than just having the owner." They rounded up staff members, Brandon, Tiffany, Jerome, and because Derek thought it would be good publicity, Diamond. They shot for hours. They posed the servers in the dining room, in the kitchen, with champagne glasses and fancy plates. And they wanted a shot of the cleaning staff too. For authenticity, the photographer said, to show the behind-the-scenes work that goes into maintaining such a pristine restaurant. So Michael was included. Marcus was pulled into a photo shoot with Diamond. "Stand here," the photographer directed. "You two, the server and the cleaner, show teamwork, show respect, show that every role in this restaurant matters." Marcus and Diamond stood next to each other. And in that moment, as the lights flashed around them, Marcus felt like he was living in two different worlds at the same time. The magazine shoot came out the following Tuesday. The headline read, "Dallas's Best, Inside the Restaurant That Changed Everything." It was a beautiful spread, lots of photos, quotes from the staff about how great it was to work there. And right there in the center of a 2-page photo were Marcus and Diamond. Marcus was in his cleaner's uniform holding a mop. Diamond was in her server's uniform holding a tray. They were standing next to each other, and even though they weren't touching, the photo captured something real between them, something genuine. The caption read, "Every role matters. From the servers who welcome guests to the cleaning staff who maintain the restaurant's pristine standards, it's teamwork that makes Washington's exceptional." Diamond loved that photo. She cut it out and put it in her locker. But the problem was, everyone in Dallas read that magazine. and someone recognized Marcus Washington. It started with a text from one of his business partners. "Your face is in Dallas Luxury Magazine. Is there something you want to tell me about your schedule?" Then came emails from his lawyers. Then came a phone call from his mother. "Marcus, sweetheart, I just saw you in a magazine cleaning a restaurant. What is going on? Did something happen to the business? Should I be worried?" Marcus couldn't explain it. How could he? "I'm fine, Mom, I promise. I'm just doing some research for the company." But the cover was blown. It was only a matter of time before Diamond saw that magazine and put the pieces together. Or before someone at the restaurant told her. And she did see it. On Friday, one of the customers left a copy at a table. Diamond was clearing tables and saw the photo. She picked it up, her eyes widened. She looked at the caption, she looked at the photo again. And then she ran to find Michael. She found him in the back, putting cleaning supplies away. "Michael," she said, holding up the magazine. "Michael, this photo, it's from the shoot last week." Marcus turned around. He was ready for this, or at least he thought he was. "Yeah," he said. "It's in Dallas Luxury Magazine," Diamond continued. "This is a major magazine, a really nice feature about the restaurant. Did you know about this?" "I did," Marcus said. Diamond studied his face. He could see the moment it clicked for her. "Michael, is that your real name?" Marcus took a deep breath. "No," he said, "my name is Marcus, Marcus Washington." Diamond's face went pale. She took a step backward. She started, but she couldn't finish. She was processing. The magazine had mentioned the owner, Marcus Washington, billionaire entrepreneur, in the article, but they hadn't included his photo, so she hadn't made the connection until now. "I'm the owner," Marcus said, "of the restaurant of the company. I'm him." Diamond's eyes filled with tears, not happy tears, angry tears. "Why?" she asked. "Why would you do this? Why would you lie to me?" "I wanted to know if you could love me," Marcus said, the truth coming out now. "Without the money, without the status, just me, just a person. Is that so wrong?" Diamond wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "Yes," she said, "it's wrong, because you made me care about someone who doesn't exist. You manipulated me. You used me to test a theory." "That's not what happened," Marcus started. "No," Diamond said, "I defended you. I stood up for you when people treated you badly, and the whole time you were playing me. You were laughing at me." "I wasn't. I told you about my student loans. I told you about my dreams. And all this time you already knew. You were watching me, testing me, playing some game." She turned to walk away. "Diamond, wait, please. My feelings for you are real. Everything I've felt is fake," she said without looking back. "Because you built it on a lie. I don't even know who you are." She walked away, and Marcus was left standing alone in the back of his restaurant, holding a magazine, realizing that his brilliant plan had blown up in his face. By Monday, everyone knew. The staff at the restaurant was in chaos. Derek was mortified. He'd been treating the owner like a regular cleaner. He told Marcus, to try not to mess anything up. Brandon was terrified. He'd humiliated the owner of the company. He was probably going to lose his job. Jerome was pale. He talked about Marcus behind his back to Marcus, not knowing it was Marcus. Tiffany was already updating her LinkedIn profile. The story had made it into the Dallas business section of local news. Billionaire owner poses as cleaner in his own restaurant. Some people thought it was romantic. Others thought it was deceptive and wrong. Marcus didn't care what the media thought. He cared that Diamond wouldn't look at him. She stopped coming to her shifts. She sent an email to Derek saying she was taking some personal time. Marcus tried to call her. She didn't answer. He sent her a text message. No response. He even went to her apartment. She didn't open the door. He left flowers on her doorstep with a note. "I'm sorry. Please let me explain." The flowers were still there the next day. They started to wilt. After a week of silence from Diamond, Marcus did something he'd never done before in his adult life. He asked for help. He called his business mentor, a woman named Patricia who'd known his parents and had watched him grow up. "I need advice," Marcus said. Patricia was in her 60s, successful in her own right, wise in ways that money couldn't buy. "Tell me everything," she said. So Marcus did. He told her about the experiment, about Diamond, about how he'd lied, about how she'd rightfully called him out for it. Patricia listened without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "Do you know what your real problem is?" Patricia asked. "That I lied," Marcus said. "No," Patricia said. "Your real problem is that you wanted someone to love you without you ever being vulnerable enough to ask. You wanted to catch love off guard. You wanted to trick someone into caring about you." Marcus started to protest, but Patricia continued. "Real love requires honesty. Real love requires putting your actual self out there and saying, 'This is who I am, money and all, character and all, flaws and all, and I'm asking you to see me and choose me anyway.'" "So what am I supposed to do?" Marcus asked. "You tell her the truth," Patricia said, "not to manipulate her into forgiving you, but because she deserves to know who you really are, all of you, and then you accept whatever decision she makes. The truth about who Michael really is has been exposed, and Diamond is devastated and furious. But here's where the story gets interesting. Marcus is going to have to do something he's never done before, be completely honest and vulnerable. He's going to have to tell Diamond the real truth about why he did this. And Diamond is going to have to decide if she can forgive him, or if the lie was too big, too hurtful to ever overcome. This is the moment that will define their entire relationship, if they have a relationship at all. Before you keep watching, please, if you're loving this story, share it with someone. Comment below and tell me, would you be able to forgive someone who lied to you like this? Or would the betrayal be too much? And if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. You don't want to miss any part of this story where everything comes to a head. 2 weeks after Diamond cut off all contact, Marcus made a decision. He wasn't going to try to convince her anymore. He wasn't going to manipulate his way back in. He wasn't going to use his money or his power or his position. Instead, he was going to write her a letter, and he was going to tell her the complete truth about who he was, why he'd done what he'd done, and what he'd learned. He sat at his desk in his penthouse and wrote. "Dear Diamond," he started and then stopped. That felt too formal. He crumpled up the paper and started again. "Diamond," he wrote, "I don't deserve your time. I know that. But I'm asking for it anyway because you deserve to understand what was really happening. The truth is, I've been lonely. Not the kind of lonely where you're physically alone. I've been surrounded by people my whole life, but the kind of lonely where nobody really knows you. Nobody knew me except for what I could give them. Money, connections, power. I wanted to know if anyone would see me, just me, the person underneath all of it. So I came to work at my own restaurant as a cleaner, and I met you. You were kind to me when nobody else was. You defended me when people were cruel to me. You didn't know I was the owner. You treated me like I mattered because I mattered to you. Not because of who I was, but because I was a person and you respect people. That's when I started falling in love with you. But here's the part I need to be honest about. I didn't tell you the truth because I was afraid. I was afraid that if you knew who I really was, everything would change. You would feel like you had to be grateful to me. You would feel indebted. You would see me as Marcus Washington, billionaire, instead of Marcus the person. And I was right. Once you found out, everything changed. But not in the way I thought. Because when I look back now, I realize something important. You were never testing me. You were just being kind, and I repaid your kindness with deception. That's on me. That's my failure, not yours. I'm not writing this to ask you to forgive me. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I'm writing this because you deserve to know who I really am, not the cleaned-up billionaire version, not the successful entrepreneur version. The real version, the version that's scared, The version that wanted someone to love him so badly that he was willing to lie to get there. The version that hurt someone he cares about because he wasn't brave enough to be honest from the start. You asked me once why I work at the restaurant, why I wanted to be nobody. Here's the real answer. I was tired of being alone. I was tired of feeling like a transaction. I wanted one person, just one, to see me as a human being worth knowing, not as a bank account worth using. I found that person. That person was you. And I destroyed it by lying. The only thing I can tell you is this. Everything I felt was real. Every moment we had when I was listening to you, when I was watching you work, when I was learning who you are, all of that was real. I won't ask you to give me another chance. I won't ask you to trust me again. I just wanted you to know the truth. You changed me. Even if it doesn't seem like it now, you did. You showed me what it means to be valued for your character instead of your bank account. You showed me what kindness looks like. You showed me that real connection is built on honesty and respect, not on games and manipulation. I'm sorry, Diamond. I'm truly sorry. Marcus. He read it over 3 times. It still didn't feel like enough, but it felt true. He hand-delivered it to her apartment on a Saturday morning. And then he went back to his restaurant. Marcus didn't expect to hear from Diamond. 3 days went by, nothing. A week went by, nothing. He wasn't going to the restaurant as Marcus anymore. He'd officially stepped back from his operations and appointed a new general manager. Derek was running things. The staff was confused and uncertain. Marcus was lost. He spent his time working, actually working, not just managing, at a restaurant he owned in a different part of Dallas. He wanted to get away from the place where everything had happened. One evening, as he was closing up, his phone rang. Unknown number. Marcus almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Hello, he said. Marcus, it was Diamond's voice. It was the most beautiful sound he'd heard in 2 weeks. Diamond, he breathed, you called. I did, she said. We need to talk. His heart jumped. Yes, anything, where, when? Tomorrow, she said, the park by the water, 11 a.m. I'll be there, Marcus said, already knowing he wouldn't sleep that night. Marcus was at the park at 10 a.m., just to be sure. He waited by the water, looking out at Dallas's skyline reflected in the lake. He was nervous in a way he'd never been nervous before. All his success, all his money, all his achievements, none of it had prepared him for this moment. At 11 a.m. exactly, Diamond walked up. She looked beautiful. She looked tired. She looked like someone who'd been thinking hard about something difficult. Thank you for coming, Marcus said. I almost didn't, Diamond said. I read your letter multiple times. I was angry. I'm still angry. Marcus nodded. He deserved that. But I also thought about it a lot, Diamond continued. And I realized something. What you did was wrong. You lied. You manipulated. You didn't give me a choice in what I was part of. That's all true. She paused. But I also realized that your letter was honest. More honest than anything you'd said to me before. And I believe that you're actually sorry. I don't think you're just sorry you got caught. I am sorry, Marcus said. And not just for the lie. I'm sorry for the whole thing. I'm sorry for thinking I could test your feelings without the consequences. Diamond nodded slowly. Can I ask you something? She said. If I had been a different person, if I had been cold to you, if I hadn't defended you, if I had treated you with disrespect, would you have still come clean about who you were? Marcus thought about that. He thought about it hard. No, he said, because it was the truth. If you hadn't shown me kindness, I probably would have stayed Michael. I probably would have convinced myself that the experiment wasn't working and moved on. Diamond flinched at that answer, but she nodded like she'd expected it. So your feelings came after you saw that I was a good person, she said. That's still manipulation in a way. You tested me, and when I passed the test, you decided to care about me. I know, Marcus said, and I hate that about myself right now. I hate that I'm capable of that kind of thinking. I hate that I treated another human being like a puzzle to solve. He looked directly at her. But here's what I want you to know, Diamond. Even if you had been cold to me, even if you had been cruel, I still would have learned something. I would have learned that not everyone is motivated by money. Not everyone wants me for what I can give them. And that knowledge, that would have changed how I see the world. You're saying your experiment had value even if it hurt me? Diamond asked. No, Marcus said. I'm saying my experiment was wrong and I regret it completely. But I also learned something true from you. I learned that you see people, you see their humanity, and that's rare, Diamond. That's beautiful, and I fell in love with that about you. Diamond's eyes filled with tears. I don't know if I can trust you, she said. How do I know you're not still lying? How do I know there's not another secret? How do I know you haven't been planning something else? You don't know, Marcus said, and I can't prove it to you. All I can offer you is my commitment to honesty going forward. That's all I have. He took a breath. And I also want to respect if you decide that you can't trust me. If you decide that what I did was too much and you want nothing to do with me, I will accept that. I will respect that decision, because you deserve someone you can trust without question. Diamond looked away, towards the water. I love my job, she said. Working at the restaurant, I love the customers. I love helping the servers. I love the environment. I don't want to leave because of you. Marcus's heart sank. He thought this was coming. But Diamond continued, I also don't want to see you there. So here's what I'm thinking, I'll stay, but I need time. I need time to figure out if I can trust you again. Real time, not days. Months, maybe. I understand, Marcus said. And I need you to stay away from me, Diamond said. No texts, no calls, no unexpected visits, no trying to convince me or win me back. If you really respect my autonomy, you'll give me the space to decide on my own if there's any future here. I will, Marcus said. He meant it. And third, Diamond said, I need you to prove it, not to me, to yourself. What do you mean? Marcus asked. I mean I need you to figure out who Marcus Washington really is, without me, without trying to impress anyone. Who are you when you strip away the money and the company and the goals? What do you believe in? What do you stand for? What do you give to the world that matters? Marcus realized what she was asking. She was asking him to find the same thing he'd been looking for in her. Over the next 3 months, Marcus disappeared from public life. He wasn't at galas. He wasn't in business magazines. He wasn't at the charity events where Dallas's elite went to see and be seen. Instead, he was volunteering. He worked with an organization that built affordable housing for low-income families. He spent Saturdays and Sundays on construction sites, building homes for people who needed them. He worked at a shelter, serving meals to homeless people, listening to their stories, treating them with the dignity and respect he'd learned from watching Diamond treat people. He went back to school, not business school. He took philosophy classes. He took courses on social justice. He took classes on the history of inequality and poverty in America. He met with his therapist every week and really examined his own patterns, his own fears, his own need to control situations and people. He learned that his parents' struggle had shaped him in ways he didn't understand. He learned that he'd equated money with safety because his parents had taught him that money would protect him. But it didn't protect his heart. Money couldn't do that. Only honesty could. Only vulnerability could. Only genuine human connection could. 3 months after their conversation at the park, Marcus still hadn't contacted Diamond. But she had called him. I want to see you, she said, if that offer is still there. Marcus met her at a coffee shop near her apartment. She walked in and sat across from him, and she looked at him with different eyes. Tell me, she said, tell me who you are now. And Marcus did. He told her about the volunteer work, about the classes, about the therapy, about the man he was trying to become. I'm not asking you to forgive me, he said, but I'm telling you that I'm different now, or at least I'm trying to be different. I'm trying to be the kind of person you thought I was before you found out who I really was. Diamond smiled. It was a small smile, but it was real. "You know what made me decide to call you?" she asked. "What?" Marcus said. "I saw you," she said. "On a Saturday, you didn't know I was there. You were building houses with that nonprofit, and I watched you work. I watched you talk to people. I watched you listen to their stories with genuine interest." She paused, and I realized something. The man I fell in love with, the kind man who respected me, who treated people well, who had integrity, that man wasn't fake. He wasn't a character you were playing. He was real. He was actually who you are underneath everything. Marcus felt his eyes fill with tears. "I realized," Diamond continued, "that you weren't lying about your character. You were lying about your circumstances, and those are two different things." She reached across the table and took his hand. "I forgive you," she said, "not because you're a billionaire, not because of anything you can give me, but because I believe that you're sorry and I believe that you're trying to be better." Marcus couldn't speak. He was too overwhelmed. "But I have one condition," Diamond said. "Anything," Marcus said. "You have to promise me that you'll never manipulate anyone again. You have to promise me that you'll treat people with respect and honesty, whether they know you're a billionaire or not. Money doesn't get to change how you treat people." "I promise," Marcus said. "I swear to you, I promise." A year later, Marcus and Diamond were engaged. Not because he swept her off her feet with expensive jewelry, but because he proposed simply, with a ring that had belonged to his grandmother, and asked her to build a life with him. Diamond quit her job at the restaurant, but not because Marcus asked her to. She quit because she'd saved enough money to go back to school. Marcus supported her financially, yes, but she made that decision herself. They opened a restaurant together, a place where both of them were owners. A place where they treated every employee, from the servers to the cleaners, with respect and dignity. Marcus changed his company. He raised wages for all his employees. He implemented profit sharing so that everyone who worked for him benefited from the success they created together. He started a scholarship fund for young people from low-income backgrounds who wanted to go into business. And every single day he was honest, with Diamond, with his employees, with himself. Because he had learned the most important lesson of his life. True love isn't found by manipulating circumstances or testing people. True love is found by being vulnerable enough to let someone see who you really are, flaws and all, and trusting them to love you anyway. And the only way anyone can love you for who you really are is if you're brave enough to tell them the truth. Moral of this beautiful story. Here are a few things this story teaches us. First, manipulation doesn't work. Even when it comes from a good place, wanting to be loved for yourself, it's still wrong. It takes away someone's agency. It makes them complicit in a lie they didn't consent to. Second, honesty is the foundation of every real relationship. You can't build something genuine on a bed of lies. Eventually, the truth comes out. And when it does, the hurt is multiplied by the betrayal. Third, real character isn't about money or status. Diamond respected Michael the cleaner because he had integrity, kindness, and respect for others. When Marcus revealed his billionaire status, that didn't change who he actually was. It just revealed what he'd been hiding. And finally, the most attractive quality a person can have is authentic vulnerability. Marcus became someone Diamond could really love when he stopped trying to control how she saw him and just let her see the real truth. If you're watching this story, think about the relationships in your own life. Are you being completely honest? Or are you hiding parts of yourself because you're afraid people won't like what they see? Because here's the truth. The people who love you for being you are the only people worth keeping. And the only way to find those people is to stop hiding and start being real. If you loved this story, please share it with someone you care about. Leave a comment and tell me, what's the biggest lesson you took from Marcus and Diamond's journey? And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do it now. I have more stories like this coming. Stories about real people, real struggles, real redemption. Stories that will make you laugh and cry and think about your own life. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being part of this community. I'll see you in the next story.